Hey everyone, and welcome to the Babylon Chronicles, a podcast dedicated to taking a look at the inner workings, discussions, and shenanigans involved with making one of the world's most powerful, beautiful, simple, and open web rendering platforms, Babylon.js. My name is Jason Carter, also known as Pirate JC, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the creator and founder of Babylon, Mr. Delta Kosh, David Couture.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, very good. So first, that's our first in 2025. So Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year.
And I guess that's the third podcast with this background for you, right? Like you are in your new office. I don't think we ever recorded a podcast in that office.
We might, I think we have, but definitely a new camera lens, that's for sure.
Oh,
so you're probably seeing a lot more of it. You're seeing some 3D printers, you're seeing some artwork that hasn't been hung up yet, and some unfinished stuff in the back. But that's all projects.
I see also very good books from a renowned author, right?
I do have a book back here that is quite good. Let me just grab a copy. If you haven't yet gotten your copy of the Zodiac Legion and the Magic Compendium, these definitely are. I also hear there's another book in this series that may or may not be coming.
Yeah, very much.
Did you know this was going to be an ad for books?
No. I like just perverting it so we can do a completely unplugged ad. That's very good. Anyway, so the topic for today, we wanted to talk about the release, right? The release process, because we are close to the 8.0.
That's right. Yeah, we're here sitting in January, late January, and our annual cadence on the Babylon dev team is that we try our best to release a new version once a year. We generally align that around the beginning of spring, end of March, April, some time frame in there. And we're coming on that time frame. So we enter every new calendar year with a passion, a drive. We're putting the foot on the gas towards our release. And as you said, 8.0 is currently scheduled to be released at the end of March on the 27th of March. As of right now, that's subject to change as things go on.
But we can talk about the legend of the monster, by the way, because that's an interesting one. So maybe before that, you mentioned the cadence and the schedule. We're gonna enter a month before the release, a code freeze moment where we will not accept any contribution on the repo unless it's a bug fix or a performance improvement, right? We're going to be extremely cautious to everything because during that 1 month time frame, the team will be hard at work looking for bugs, regression, doing a lot of tests, writing documentation, running performance tests. And by the way, I have right there on my desk a very old PC.
This is my favorite story by far. When I joined the team, I was like, "You're kidding."
Since the inception of Babylon.js, when we were releasing a version, I wanted to make sure that we were not regressing, right? And so measuring performance is a pain, right? So what I did at that time, it was more than 10 years ago, okay? Take that with a grain of salt. And I bought a computer and I did not connect it to internet. And I had a list. Now we have 200-ish playground that we run. And I run them on that computer on a monitor which can render at 120 Hertz. So it's just limited a little bit higher than 60 frames per second. It was on a very old 1080 card. And for every version, I rerun exactly the same test and I compare manually all the frame rate of what I have on my Excel file for the previous release and 1 year later with the new release. So last year, what I did that, okay, and I was happy with 7.0 because there was only improvement in performance. And then I changed the computer, right? Because I had a new baseline, I changed the computer because the previous one was like, it deserved to go to where the old computers go, right?
Like, yeah. It's the dog that goes to the farm, right?
Yeah, exactly. The happiness farm, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a new, but I do that so nothing changed, right? Because it's so complicated to measure performance. A new driver can change everything. So I just want to make sure that the only thing that changed is the code, and so that guy here measure that.
So are you okay? So just to recap. You have a benchmark PC that remains disconnected from the entire outside world. It cannot be upgraded with different software internally. And so you take a thumb drive and you upload
USB drive,
a USB drive, new Babylon
I have a
code.
Diablo 2 USB drive that I use.
Perfect. Perfect. And then you plug into this old box and you run it, and it's a benchmark against the old one, and you see frame rate differences on these 200
playground. Like, I don't know, we have gazillions of playground, but I look at the playground, I look at my Excel files. That playground was running, and because it's 120 hertz, so I can go a little bit higher, and it's not a super powerful computer. So I look. The previous one was running, I don't know, at 78 frames per second.
Yeah.
With the new code, because we are backward compatible, I can do that, right? I run exactly the same thing, and I have to have 78 or more.
Better. Right. Yeah.
And then I took that all this number, and that's my new baseline for next year. And I do not change the computer between these two checkpoints. I can change that after having the baseline, but somehow I got attached to the computer.
I love it. I love it. It's such a brute force story, but if it works,
absolutely,
it works.
That's dumb as heck, right? Of course.
So
I know that because only the code change is if there is a regression, it's on us.
Yeah,
I cannot blame the driver or whatever. Or Chrome or Edge or whatever.
Engineering terms, right? You're trying to limit the variables of change so that you can vary it. Okay, so we're in a rabbit hole now, but at any point in our history of 11 and a half, 12 years of making Babylon, has there been a moment where you've plugged in this USB drive and gotten lower frame rates?
No, never. That's true. But that may be a good segue to the monster.
Yeah.
Because there is a tradition, like with every single release, to the exception of the last one, we have a monster. A monster, what is that? Right? It's in the code freeze period, so between the release and 1 month earlier, something catastrophic happened. It always was the case. For Babylon 2, Chrome shipped a new version that broke half of our shaders.
Yeah.
It was not on us. It was a bug on Chromium. But if you look at that from our angle, okay, half of our code does not work anymore. People will test Babylon.js. No one will give a flying F about the fact that it's not our fault, right?
Yeah.
So you have to deal with a monster. Okay, you need to kill that beast, but it's not under your control. Apple ship a new release of Safari probably 3 days before we ship, and they break something. So Babylon code, if you look at it right now, even right now, and you go to the engine.ts file, you're gonna see a specific code that it's here to tame the monster. So we have, if Chrome version is whatever, then turn off that feature or use that fallback. If Apple Safari is that version, then do that. So we have a list of, I can't remember, but 20 items, and all of them were monster, and I'm not kidding you, that were added to the code base less than a month before release. So I'm waiting patiently for the monster that's going to come for 8.0.
For something to break, yeah.
Something to break that we cannot control, right?
Yeah.
Like it's browser, it was a NVIDIA driver at some point, or an Android version, like every time something that it's just breaking the experience for the user, and it's not our fault.
Yeah, which is very frustrating for sure. Let's shift focus very, very quickly and talk about before we get into some of the logistics of how a release works for Babylon. Let's talk about the concept of a release, because that's actually an interesting sort of thing. When we say that we do a release once a year, there's a bit of a misnomer in that. What we actually do are we're releasing a new version of Babylon once a week. With nightly builds that actually will do bug fixes on a nightly basis. But once a week, there is a new version of Babylon. As we develop something throughout the year, it is coming to people. Those features are coming to people, and they are available.
Naturally.
Yeah.
And we want to do that because we want to make sure that we have what I call the million army testers, right? Like everyone tests every single version shipping every week, and every version shipping every week, to the exception of testing on my benchmark computer, are tested like production ready, like new version.
Yeah. And so what ends up happening is, so about a year ago, we released Babylon 7. Throughout the last year, we've been developing a bunch of new features that we're saying are for Babylon 8, but they're actually coming out in Babylon 7.26 and 7.31.
We have 7.47 right as we speak right now.
Right. And so every week, some of the features that are coming to quote unquote Babylon 8 are actually coming out in different minor versions throughout the year. And as you pointed out, there's a very specific reason as to why we do that. In Babylon.js world, it is not privatized software. It is open source software. The community makes the software, tests the software, uses it. They develop it, and they play a part in that development with us throughout the year. So we don't view the world as saying we're going to make something and then test it with internal mechanisms. Right? We make something and we give it out there to the world, and we ask people to use it, to test it, and then we match that with a passion for bug fixing.
Correctly. That's the only way it could work, right? Because we ship fast. If you just ship fast, it's a recipe for disaster, right?
Totally.
If you ship fast, and as you said, you fix fast, then users say, okay, I'm going to confidently take the latest version, like the cutting edge one, right? I will probably find something, and then I know the team within 24 hours will get a new extra release on top of this one to fix my problem.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we have a constant stream of releases, and they are all stable.
Yeah, and the mechanism that people have for that, of course, is you can report bugs through the GitHub repository. But most commonly, what people do is they go onto the forum, as you just said, to have a conversation about it. Hey, I think I found something. Is this a problem? And the reason that is a great mechanism is because the core dev team that's working on Babylon full time, we staff the forum every single weekday, right? And so we're constantly looking at, are there bugs, are there problems, and those become the highest priority. So there's this contract with the core development team and those who are using the latest version of Babylon, which is we think this stuff is good. We, of course, have done a little bit of our own internal testing, but we want people to tell us if there are bugs, and we will respond instantly when there are with a fix if there's something broken, and stuff breaks. It's software.
Yeah, it's a break. That's why it's a good segue why we have this code freeze. And then for a month before a major release, and I think that's where you were getting, a major release is mostly a celebration, but it's also a hardened version, a strengthened version of the accumulation of what was done before, until from the 7.0 to the 8.0, right? So during a month, there is no new feature. So we just let the million army tester run, test everything. We ship new release. They are just bug fixed, meaning that when we hit the button for the 8.0, it's a super strong one that went through a full month of test. Right?
Exactly. And this one, in some cases, a full year on some of these features of testing.
And some companies have a very strict approach to that. So they cannot bet on, okay, yeah, you can fix it, but anyway, I can't. So the major release are that contract. Okay, I understand. You can take this one with a very trustworthy approach, right? It's not gonna break. I mean, sometimes it breaks, but we fix it anyway. But it's a very battle-tested one.
Yeah. Now, I think the last time we did a friendly poll in our community and with some of the partners that rely on Babylon, I think the number was something upwards of 85 to 90% of people just use the weekly build, right? The latest and greatest.
And you see it in the wild, right? When we figure out there is someone using it, most of the time they are on the cutting edge, right? Some big partners don't do that because of their internal politics, no problem. And that's why we have the major release.
Exactly. And those major releases then stamp. So if you are, hey, I took Babylon 7 and I can't take the nightlies because it's difficult to update versions because of internal politics or whatever it might be, then you can wait until 8.0 comes out a year later. And so 8.0, or excuse me, every major release does represent those two things that you just mentioned. It is battle hardened. It has been tested throughout the year by the Babylon community at large, and these are people dedicated to using Babylon every day. It has been code frozen and analyzed and performance analyzed for over a month. And then the second thing that you mentioned is it stands as a moment of celebration, right? Yes. So we mentioned this earlier.
I love that part, honestly.
Yeah, the core dev team has the luxury, the privilege of working on Babylon full-time, but we are by no means the Babylon team. The Babylon team at large is a community of hundreds, thousands of people all over the world who are contributing their time, effort,
passion, motivation,
all of that to the platform. And so what we want to do is, in addition to being with people on the forum every weekday and answering questions and solving bugs, we also want to take a moment to celebrate what the community at large has accomplished throughout a given year. This is features that have come out that have been developed for Babylon, either by the core Babylon team or in some cases by external companies or contributors, individual.
We have a good example, right? Adobe contributed major rendering techniques to the Babylon 8.0, like major one, like big monsters, and that's not just us.
Yeah. If you've been paying attention, you probably know which ones we're talking about. If you don't, we're going to remain teasery about it. But
it's going to be in the video for sure.
Great partner team and our friends over at Adobe who, they contribute to Babylon and make it better for everyone, just as we at Microsoft do. And so it's a celebration of a bunch of people from different backgrounds, different companies, different areas of study, all coming together to say we made this better together. Whether that be you helped someone on the forum, you contributed to documentation, you made a new feature, you bug tested, whatever it is, you contributed, and we want to celebrate you. And so that actually brings us to an interesting moment here, which is what we kind of do is we prepare for the release with really two main pieces of assets, right? We have a blog post that we put together that describes all of the new hotness that's come to the new version throughout the year.
And teaser, it's going to be a big one this year.
It's going to be, we say that every year. It's like, I wonder what's going to be.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, Babylon 8 is looking impressive. I agree. And then the other thing that we do is we cut together kind of a movie preview type trailer for the release itself.
Well, you can give you some credit, right? Like you have a very superpower here. You know how to create like cinematic trailers.
It's a joy. It's a passion.
Oh my gosh! Every time I see them, it gives me chills. Like,
well, it's an artistic expression for me to be able to celebrate that community I'm passionate about. And we usually break it into 3 sections each video. There's a section that talks about the new features, similar to what's in the blog post. There's a section that shows off some of the amazing creations that have been done, like real websites that are out there that people are making with Babylon. Sometimes partners, sometimes just cool websites and resume websites and portfolio things that people have made. And then the final one is really a special dedication to just the community.
Yeah.
And that's we try and cram in as much as we can there. And so I'll actually use this moment to kind of suggest head on over to the Babylon forum now.
Please.
You can go submit anything that you've created with Babylon. You can go submit a link to that for consideration to be included in our release video this year for 8. So we look at anything that's been created within the last year by anyone. Doesn't have to be professional, doesn't have to be perfect. But if you're proud of it, we want to celebrate you in this release video.
Yes.
And these release videos, we over the course of the years, they've changed a little bit. We've gotten quite serious about them now. We actually work with record labels,
thanks to you, because
music agents and artists, real professional music artists to have really compelling music that kind of drives these videos. And again, it's all as a celebration to the community and what everybody's accomplished together.
I can't wait, honestly. And just for the under the hood here, I personally do not want to hear about the video before it's ready.
Yeah, that's changed. That's changed. When I first started on the team, it was kind of like, well, we used to, I'd give some examples. People would vote on the song that they wanted.
Now it's a surprise.
It's a surprise. Yeah.
Well, I guess you earn our trust on the quality of the stuff. So now we just want to be the spectator and say, okay, you know what? I don't want to see how the sausage is made. I want to see the movie at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's become fun. I always enjoy that moment when it's like, all right, here it is, folks. Here's release video time.
It gives me chill just sharing. And we share that honestly internally. Everyone is pumped. It's a very positive and virtuous circle, right? Like where Microsoft, of course, pay our salary, right? Then Microsoft find a reason to do that because a lot of products internally at Microsoft are using Babylon.js. Yep. But there is also this good aspect of it where it's open source and nothing is hidden. We operate entirely around GitHub and the forum, right? And so it's a celebration of all of that. Like it's a good willing stuff. And honestly, in the current environment, having some goodness and happiness, it's a good thing. I can't wait to see the video.
Yeah, my add to that is, so it's easy in today's day and age for the world to be divided, for people to be divided. And it's very special when we get to celebrate moments where we come together to accomplish something together.
All countries, all religion, all sex, all color, everything, right? we are all united to create a piece of software, right? That some people used to make a living, some people used to just have fun, some people used to experiment. It's the embodiment of my view of the Star Trek world I would love to live in, right?
I love it. I love it. I bought into it as well. Yeah, and it's super, super fun. Let's shift gears very, very briefly into some of the mechanics. So obviously preparing for a release, though we do release throughout the year, as you mentioned, there's a number of things that happen behind the under the hood. So there's your benchmarking PC, there's code freeze so that we can bug test and make
documentation writing. Like I know some people, for instance, someone needs to write a lot of documentation about new nodes. I want to quote him
somebody has to write a bunch of docs here in the coming weeks. That's true.
All of that is happening. We have Thomas, our master organization, mastermind, who is driving a TikTok where we have all the steps. It accelerates as we reach the point where we're going to push the button, because at that moment we need to update the website, check the links, run the demos. Everything is working on the iPhone, iOS, Android, PC, etc. So we are now running some meetings with all the team to make sure that we remove from the list stuff that we know that will not make it for 8.0. It's going to be for 9.0. A very good example, recently we just finished Area Light. It's a big new feature done by Sergio in the team. If during that meeting, Sergio have told us, hey, you know what, I'm not ready for 8.0, the quality is not there, then that will be pushed to 9.0. So we balanced what is shipped and what is not shipped, and running, we still have a month, right, before the early March, where everything will be posted.
Yeah. And you said something quite funny, especially in today's climate. You said that Thomas runs a TikTok. What is a TikTok?
Yeah, like a list, a checklist.
It's probably not what most people are thinking.
Yeah. No, not a TikTok where he does video. No. I mean, a list of do that, then that, then that. Do not forget to send that email. Check if people are okay with that. Like publish the video, like a list that we check.
I describe it to people as kind of like a NASA mission control, right? Like a space agency where you have this massive checklist of things that you have to do in order, and everybody has a role. And so what we do on the morning of release, well, leading up to release, we're preparing this list, making sure that we have everything, all the ducks in a row. And in the morning of release, where it's launched, we literally hop onto a virtual call together. We have all the windows, and it does very much feel like mission control. We say, okay, what's next on the list? Great. David, you're on this. Okay, Jason, you're on this. Ronan, you're doing this. Pull the plug here. Has anyone done this yet? And it's this.
Did you test that? Oh my gosh, the link does not work. No, it's fine because it's a CDN which is not updated yet. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's stressful, but in an energetic,
in a good way,
in a passionate, exciting way. And so then our release day always looks a little something like this. It's exciting anticipation. We're leading up to the release as we're getting everything ready, and then we get to watch it, and we get to watch Twitter. We get to watch
reply on the forum, go to Twitter, all the social networks, making sure that.
Yeah, and we pay close attention on the forum, because that when there is a lot of attention to it, sometimes people will jump on it and see something new that they've never seen before and want to know more about it. And so we can point them to more information about it. And so it really is, I like to tell people that the road to release is a 3-month-long process where that ramps up into intensity. And so really when we kick off our calendar year, we're jumping into that release and that 3-month window, and it's incredibly exciting.
Don't you feel personally? It's always the case for me. After the release, like the day after, I feel empty. I feel like what happened? Like where is everything? Like, it's so intense. Like, and after that, there is a cliff. Like nothing.
For sure. Many of us have been known to go, take an afternoon off and go see a movie or something afterwards.
You have to reconnect with the reality.
Yeah, but it's very, very fun. It's an energetic time for sure. And I already said this, but I would just to reiterate it a little bit. This is a culmination of not just a dev team. It's a culmination of a community, and that piece is just really meaningful to us, to all of us on the dev team.
As you said, if you watch this podcast and you have something that you want to get showcased, please go to the forum and mention it.
Absolutely. And then the last thing I'll say is actually, what happens post-release. And so, we release a new version, it's out there, and then immediately, like next week, starts our cycle of planning for the next year.
It's going to be 8.1, like literally the week after. Well,
yeah.
Sometimes it happens to have 8.0.1, 8.0.2 the same day because, oh gosh, we forgot about that. Right?
Yeah, we try not to. It happens. Yeah. And we start planning out our next calendar, annual year, looking towards Babylon 9. And one of the important components of that is that we always take into account what the needs of the platform are. Now, when we say when we say needs, there's multiple things, right? There are some things that the core dev team is very passionate about, like things that maybe Gaussian splat would be a great example. It wasn't necessarily something people were asking about, but Cedric on our team was passionate about it and goes, I want to do this. And so we made it a priority. And now it's a thing that people are really using, and it's incredible. There's also a list of things that the community has asked for, things that are needed, things that area lights being one of those big things that has been requested for years now. And we're so thankful that it's coming to Babylon 8. And so this is an invitation to anyone who's listening out there to, if you're starting to think about things that you need, major features that you need with Babylon, please go onto the forum and suggest them. Go find the page.
We have a category for that. A feature request category.
There's a category on the forum where you can go on and you can suggest things and then upvote them. And we look at that list all the time, the core dev team. And then, of course, there are external contributors who grab things from that list as well. And so, the forum is your best friend. Go there, make suggestions, and we look at that as we prepare for the next release. So we're at Babylon 8 almost.
Yes, almost.
I'm thinking about not just Babylon 9, but Babylon 10. 10 is, it's an X. It's the big one. Yes. So anything tickling your brain that you want to do for 10, or should we keep that all hidden?
Honestly, I don't know. I have some ideas for 9 already. But for 10, we used to have a goal to get rid of stuff, and we call that the Babylon X or Babylon 10 project. We sparkled that across the way, like, for instance, moving everything to be web GPU first. That was done for 8. I know that Hanan and Ryan are working on improving the tree shaking approach that may break a little bit. So we try to very much not break. You know us, right? We do not break backward compatibility. We have a slight authorization from the universe to break a little bit more for X. So that's maybe stuff that will happen on the long run. So in 2 years from now, we try to do that very cautiously and slowly. But that's very true. For X, we have that project of improving and reorganizing a little bit the way Babylon architecture, like on a module approach, how is it doing? That's the biggest I have right now, because most of the time, everything else can be added without being a pain.
Yeah, agreed. I do think something that I'll hint at that we are working towards is the GLTF interactivity extension is becoming more serious. There's a spec now that's been written for it, and we're adopting support for that. And so as the GLTF interactivity spec solidifies and becomes ratified, that means that GLTF objects can have behaviors that travel with them. And that is something
I was told that maybe there will be a editor for that as well.
Yeah. So some kind of ability for you to create behaviors for your 3D objects
without writing code.
Without writing code. That kind of a space is something we're deeply, deeply interested in, opening up doors to make Babylon even more simple for more people, and exposing the power of being able to saving out logic flow and or behaviors with your assets is a really compelling space. That not just us, other people are looking at as well, but certainly from a Babylon perspective, as you think of the next 2 years, I'm sure you're going to start seeing some chatter around some of this stuff. So if you have thoughts on that, if you're passionate about that, hop onto the forum and let us know.
Hanan will be your main guy.
For sure.
Anyway, stop teasing.
That's right. Yeah, enough teasing. So that's a little bit of what it looks like to release for Babylon.js, an exciting process that is multiple months in the making, and a culmination of everything that the community does together. That's it, I think, for this episode. Thanks for joining us, folks. As always, my name is Jason Carter, Pirate JC, joined by David Katuri. And yeah, thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll see you in the next one.
You guys, bye.
Bye.